Yo, so not too long ago I did have a video explaining how I became a comic book geek, and at the time I had around 40 comics. Yeah. Well, the time's come now, I've now got 50. Well, 50 including the Scott Pilgrim series, which I count as one entry, and I felt it's time to talk about it again. I've already done a video fairly recently about comics that are neither Marvel nor DC that I've come into possession of. But today I thought Marvel and DC talk about them both, because it seems I'm not the world's biggest comic book geek. I mean, as I said, 50 different comics or graphic novels, and yeah, you could probably find somebody who has more and has a lot bigger knowledge than I have. But one thing I have noticed as I've now passed 50 is this might be due for buyer behaviour, but with Marvel, I've kind of less of the small stories, and my favourite ones tend to be some of the bigger series, the collabs, the come together, the team ups. I mean, for example, the most recent one I picked up was House of M, kind of a famous pairing, a famous team up of the Avengers and the X-Men, which that was one of the recent ones. I enjoyed both Civil Wars. Those are ones I picked up quite a bit. I've also got in there Planet Hulk and World War Hulk, and yeah, quite a few different ones down there. But most of them are kind of the big team ups. There's also Age of Ultron, Secret Invasion, and Avengers vs X-Men. Yeah, these are kind of big team ups. I mean, I've got smaller issues in my Marvel past, such as Spider-Man Blue, Spider-Man Noir, and kind of the first few issues of Superior Spider-Man. But yeah, my favourite ones from at least the Marvel side of the comics tend to be the kind of big team ups, or yeah, essentially the big team ups. Whereas with my DC collection, which is slightly smaller than my Marvel, but still a pretty good one, my favourite ones from there are usually the kind of smaller ones. I mean, the biggest ones I really have on my DC side were the biggest ones I really had on my DC side were Crisis on Infinite Earths, quite a famous storyline, I think from the 80s or the 70s, and an even older one, Batman Nightfall, made famous by Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight Rises, but which, while I admit they are good comics and kind of good ones to talk about, my favourite ones seem to be from New 52. I've heard people complain a lot about the New 52 continuity. People say, oh, no, it was rubbish and everything, but I actually don't think it's that bad. And I admit, by buying New 52 comics, it does help me to kind of build a steady kind of timeline in my mind. I mean, as I said, the only ones from my DC side that aren't really New 52 were Batman Nightfall, Crisis on Infinite Earths, Batman Year 1, Batman Hush. I've also got The Dark Knight Returns and Batman Under the Red Hood, as well as the Arrowverse comic written by Guggenheim and Kreisberg and Grell. But yeah, while did enjoy those ones, I also got two from Rebirth, but really my favourites were kind of the New 52 starts. I've got New 52 Flash, New 52 Green Arrow, I've got New 52 Batman in there, two New 52 Suicide Squad, and two New 52 Justice League. So, it's weird to think. I mean, like with buying comics, like with everything else in life, you buy the stuff that you like, and then every now and again you do circle off to try and find something that's a little bit different, but you still enjoy. But then you do end up going back to the stuff that you enjoyed, and having now gotten 50 comics, I'm definitely starting to see a kind of pattern with me of with the DC side, while the kind of more complicated, bigger stories are definitely worth checking out, I tend to prefer the kind of smaller stuff that's kind of broken down into individual volumes and sold on, that I can follow as I go along. I don't have to stick to one story at a time. I can switch between every other and come out with a really good collection. So, there you go, 50 different comics, and I found two different sides that I like. I like the big kind of Marvel team-ups, the Avengers, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four and all that, but I also like the kind of slower stories and smaller ones with DC. As I said, the big ones aren't necessarily bad. Far from it. I just seem to kind of prefer the smaller ones where I can go at my own pace. I mean, yes, every now and again I would buy something like a big classic Batman, but then every now and again I prefer to just settle down with a small Green Lantern. You know what? That's okay. Because here's the root of it. Not everyone's going to be the same. Some people like comics, some people don't like comics. And within the comic community, there's sub-layers to that. Some people are going to be hardcore Marvel fans, getting everything Marvel. Some people are going to be hardcore DC fans, getting everything DC. And there are going to be people like me who kind of dabble in the middle, who like some parts of Marvel and like some parts of DC. And in the end, that's okay. Everyone has their own tastes. Yeah, whether you like the big DC, the small DC, the big Marvel, the small Marvel, or something in between, as I've mentioned in previous videos. Yeah, everyone has their own taste, and you know what? That's fine. 50 separate comics. I'll see where the future takes me next. Till then, see ya.